Margaret Ross. I'd like to welcome you to a very, very special session we've got today, and to three very interesting speakers. And you understand why I'm talking about three in a moment.
Right.
I think you can actually see Professor Sophy Smith in front of us, and Laura, who's absolute whiz there, and
Hello.
also Lizzie, which why we want this is all very special is because this is the tomorrow is the International Women's Day, and Lizzie is the ideal person to actually lead us into this. So at that stage, I'm going to hand across to Sophie, Laura, and Lizzie. Thank you. Oh, and just last thing to remind everybody, as usual, please stay muted, and questions and comments into the chat, they'll be dealt with but when we finish the recording. Thank you very much. So welcome you to start. Thank you.
All right, here we go. Hello, I am Elizabeth Bennett. Welcome to this special webinar with the British Computer Society. A big thank you to Margaret Ross for organising this event. I apologise for not being there in person due to an upgrade for an installation at the University for the Creative Arts. I hope this message finds you well. I would like to thank Professor Sophy Smith for hosting today, and I wish you all find it an insightful session. Let's explore together.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks very much to Lizzie there for welcoming us to today's session. My name is Sophy Smith. I'm Professor of Creative Technologies Practice at the University of Creative Arts, where I also have the joy of being the Executive Dean of the School of Creative Cultural Arts and also the Director of Games and Creative Technologies. And with me today also I have Lauren Newport-Quinn, who is our Innovation Manager at University for the Creative Arts. And also I've just seen pop up as part of the audience, Tongi Devarin, who is actually part of the creative team for this project as well. So you snuck in there, Tongi, but you may end up having some questions at the end of this talk, which will be absolutely brilliant. So it's lovely to see so many people here today. Really, what the kind of format of the next hour is going to be I'm going to be doing a presentation about our Avatar.AI avatar Lizzy Bennett, and then there'll be time for plenty of questions and perhaps kind of chats across the room, so to speak, as well. And I need to warn you all that in true style of International Women's Day tomorrow, as a working mum, I have two girls lurking in the house outside this room, and at any point they might burst in and demand pizza or something. So I'm giving you fair warning that might happen at any time. Right, bear with me while I share my screen and we can crack on. Lovely. So a little bit, first of all, about the making of Lizzie and where the idea of Lizzie came from. And to give you a bit of background about that, I just want to talk about the work that I do at the University for the Creative Arts, and then hopefully you will see where this kind of idea organically came from. So my background is my research really looks at creative practice and cultural sector as well, and looking at how emerging technologies are really changing different bits of practice and work within those sectors. So, for example, I might be looking at augmented reality or mixed reality or artificial intelligence, and working with practitioners to see how that technology might choose the practice that they're making, and therefore those different kind of cultural experiences or entertainment experiences that are being made. So I've got here a little board of ongoing projects, because Lizzie's not the only thing we have in the pipeline. So you can kind of see the work that, some of the work that we're doing within my research. So top left here, we have a really experimental piece of work where we're looking at how you can put real-time capture of a dancer into a game engine environment, which would mean that you could sit at home and through your browser watch a live performance, a live dance performance as it's shared across the world. Down here we have a performer called Dave Donow. He's a cellist. If you're wondering why he's in a very strange outfit, that's a motion capture outfit. And basically he's rigged up there, so when he plays on his cello, he's exploring how the different movements are affecting the digital environment around him. So again, this is going straight into a game engine here. And so you imagine that as a user, you wouldn't necessarily have to go and see Dave play the cello in Leicester, where he's based. You could sit wherever you were worldwide, put a virtual reality headset on and be immersed in this kind of ever-changing digital environment that he's making. And over here, this is another example of an audio piece. This was in collaboration with the Philharmonia Orchestra in London as part of a project called Audience of the Future. And what we were doing there was looking at how you could use virtual reality to really change people's experiences of an orchestral piece. So we were working with a version of Bluebeard's Castle. And if you imagine, the orchestra was recorded one instrument at a time, which is a feat in itself. And then each of those audio stems or recording of music was assigned to a different tree in the forest. So as you put your headset on and you wake up in this magical forest, as you wander around, you hear all the different instruments of the orchestra playing Bluebeard's Castle. And so it's really interesting piece of research to look at how that helps people's understanding and enjoyment of these existing pieces of work. So you can see that also we kind of support other people as well in their research. So there's a couple of special editions that we've been working on in the International Journal of Performing Arts and Digital Media. Weirdly, my original background was actually in hip hop, which my PhD is in. So you can see that really one of the things that I'm looking at in my research is all about how these new technologies can offer artists and audiences new ways of engaging with work. Oh, it's beeping at me. So a little bit now about where this research kind of sits in University for the Creative Arts. So University of the Creative Arts has 3 campuses. Lauren and I are based in Farnham. There's also a campus in Epsom and a campus in Canterbury. And it does what it says on the tin. It's the University of the Creative Arts. We are centred around creative practice and really training and developing the future artists. So we work really closely looking at creative practice again and emerging technologies and making sure that our students and our researchers have all the skills they need to go forward with these emerging technologies. So these are the courses you'll see, because there's kind of a transdisciplinary theme to this presentation, really. You'll see these are the courses that we do at undergrad: comic and concept art, computer science, creative computing, digital art, games animation, games art, game design, and game development. And the key thing here, which will come out in the project with Lizzy, is it's that balance of art and technology that is really needed for these emerging technologies. And so what we're trying to do with our undergrad students and our master's students, when you look at this list, is really work with them to develop projects where creative practice and emerging technologies really fuse together. So these are our postgraduate programs, again going across that kind of art and technology span. So game art, game design, games engineering, human computer interaction, virtual and immersive reality, and PhDs in games and creative technology. Then for 2026, we have starting masters in artificial intelligence and creative practice, and also concept art MA. So again, always constantly changing those courses as the technology, as the and as the practice, as the sector moves forward. So, you know, what we're trying to do within Games and Creative Technologies at UCA is really work together as a big community, which is really reflected by the fact that both Lauren and Tongi are here today, which is marvellous, which is where you've got undergrad students, postgrad students, researchers, academics working really closely with industry partners, whether that's games companies like Tongi or, in the case of this project, the Jane Austen House Museum, because that's where all the innovative practice really happens. That's where that kind of really exciting R&D is. And so a couple of other examples here are PhD projects that we have with industry. So looking at live performance in virtual environments, working with a dance company called Motion House, and then working with a company called Copper Candle, looking at metaverse live events. So again, really helping and working with companies to push where these emerging technologies might be able to take them. Also at the university, what's really important is we have an incubator studio for our students, and the incubator studio played a key part in this project really, which is why I wanted to include it. And the incubator is a place where students can come and develop their IP after their third year, but it's also where companies can come if they want to explore different areas within their work and perhaps haven't got the tech team that they need or the support, so they can come and work with the students in our incubator to support that. So let's move on to the project a little bit, because I know that's what you're all here to find out about. So first of all, I'm going to run through the key partners of this project, because it's partnerships, I think, that really bring a project to life, which I can talk about in a bit. So at the top there, in the little black boxes, we have our 3 UCA partners. So there's myself, there is Lauren, and then on the right hand side there is a gentleman called Andy Bosom. And Andy is our industry lead within the school, and helps all those partnerships happen that make projects like this come alive, which is brilliant. Then underneath us, you will see Tongi and his team. Tongi's sitting there in the middle in a very smart looking chair. To right is his brother Jerome, who's the CEO, and then on the right hand side, Dan, who's the Chief Technology Officer. And they're part of a company called StarPal, and they provided all the game technology side of this project and all the AI side of the project. I'd like to point out at this point that I am not the technology brain. So if you have any questions afterwards, my knowledge of the technology side of it will just about be limited enough to tell you what happened. There's going to be a future talk further down the line, which we'll tell you about later, where Tongi can talk you through all the technological comings and goings. On the right hand side here, we have aptly named Lizzy at the top, Lizzy Dunford, who is director of Jane Austen House, and below her is Becky, who is one of the museum officers at the museum. I think it's hilarious how they're both photographed with books. Clearly just what they do best is read Jane Austen at Jane Austen House Museum, but these are photos that I got from their website, which is brilliant. So I'm going to talk a little bit about where the project came from and how that partnership happened, and a little bit about why it happened. So hopefully I've given a rundown of what my work is as a researcher and what we do at the University of the Creative Arts. And basically what we do is come up with questions that might have bigger implications for the cultural and the creative sectors. And I work in games and creative technologies, but I come from a performance background, so I'm always trying to look for those link ups behind the two. And a couple of years ago, what was happening within game technology was that artificial intelligence was becoming more and more prevalent within the game engines and the workflows and systems that were being used within games. And one of a major change that happened was relating to what are called NPCs, or otherwise known as non-player characters. And I was trying to get some really good clips to show you today, but if you want an example of a really good non-player character, you need to watch Jumanji. Because the whole of Jumanji is a premise that people go into a video game and they're living in this game. Now, with a non-player character, they're the characters within the video game that might help signpost the player around the narrative. So, for example, if you were in a game, and let's say it was a puzzle game, and you were walking into a room or a massive temple or something, and there'd be a character there who might say something like, "Oh, don't forget to pick up your lunchbox," or "Oh, watch out for the dragons," or something along those lines, but basically guiding you through the game. The limitation of non-player characters used to be that they were kind of stuck with a very small script. So you couldn't really ask them anything, and every time you went up to them within a certain area, they would say one or two sentences, and they were always the same sentences. But what happened a few years ago was that because the artificial intelligence could now start playing within these workflows, that you could have much fuller conversations with these non-player characters. And so there would be information kept within a large language model, for example, that the player could draw on, so you could have conversations and find out much more information in a kind of discursive way. And I was going to conferences, and people were very excited about what this meant for kind of play, what it meant for that experience for the player, and how it was much more exploratory. And then obviously from a performance background, I was thinking, oh, how could we use that? Like, what might that be like in theatre or with literature? Actually, if you've got this, you can kind of create these characters and have more of an interaction with them. What might that mean for other areas? And so I'd started thinking about this and started thinking about how you could use that technology in those workflows to bring a literary character to life. Because this was kind of like, in a way, quite a quick and simple way, because it didn't involve creating all the content. That content was there. But what if we could take all that content about a literary character and then bring them to life, and then you could talk to that literary character? So as I was getting all excited about the potential of this, I went to a networking event, and there I met Tongi. And Tongi and I didn't know each other. And Tongi was telling me about this system that his company had just built, where it would recreate characters from history. I think it was Napoleon at the time, wasn't it, Tongi, and Muhammad Ali. And you could talk to them. And Muhammad Ali could give you boxing advice, and Napoleon could give you advice about strategies and ruling and leadership and things like that. And I suddenly thought, hang on a minute, he's got this. He's got the workflow. He's got the system. And so rather than reinventing the wheel twice, we decided to work together on this project. For me, the interesting or the necessary thing was, so we have the idea, and now we have the technology and the capacity to make it happen. What we didn't have at that point was the third really important bit for amplification and case study, which was the partner. And we'd thought of a few different literary characters that we might use, and then I realised that the Jane Austen House Museum is only 15 miles away from UCA in Farnham, and thought that that might be a really nice link up. And so we went to see them. Here we go. I'll put that on the page again. We went to see Lizzy, and we went to see Rebecca, and to sell them and to pitch them this idea. This itself was a really interesting process, because by this point, Tongi and Andy and Lauren and I had got ourselves into a frenzy about how exciting this was going to be. And we just assumed that everybody else would think it was going to be equally exciting. The interesting point then was going to the museum and trying to really demonstrate to them what it possibly might mean for the museum and what their use case could be. Because they could see that it was interesting, but actually, until we could get a prototype off the page, it was more theoretical than practical. And I think it's quite hard to imagine what the potentials are until you have a prototype to work with. They were incredibly supportive, and what they decided to do really was that their role would be as the Jane Austen specialists. And so this was their role in the project. And the first way that they helped us really was to choose the character. It wasn't necessarily going to be Lizzie Bennett to begin with. There was some discussion about whether or not it should be Mr. Darcy, but they were adamant that it had to be Lizzie Bennett because she is the favourite character. And so and the most interesting character, with a lot written about her. And so they thought that it would be the best idea to choose Lizzie Bennett. And then what they offered was access to the house and access to the assets in the house. And they offered their expertise around the curation of knowledge around Lizzie Bennett and Jane Austen. So they were really central in working with in making sure that the avatar that we created was correct, in making sure that we were supported by developing the avatar from just the words of truth that were in Pride and Prejudice, and not from any BBC adaptation or film that might have been out there. And they were adamant as well, because they said there is no fan base like the Jane Austen fan base. They are very knowledgeable, and they said if you err outside the correct even particular year of the book, then they will know and they won't like it. So it was brilliant, because I love a bit of rigor, and they offered loads of that. So what we did then was we decided that what we wanted to do was to involve the students in this project. So we had the idea, we had the technology, thanks to Tongi and his team. We had the partner, and we had the content, which was Jane Austen and Lizzie Bennett. But we now needed to kind of take this off the page and to give her an appearance, and to make sure that the system ran. So we started up a competition within the university, because we all love competitions. And this competition was going to be between our MA digital fashion students and our game art students. And they had to pair up to make a Regency era avatar. And then, important for us, because we always want this kind of industry and sector realism, was that as part of the process, they were to go to the Jane Austen House and pitch their ideas to the developer and heritage specialists. And then the winning team would be awarded a prize. And I think they had about a month to do all this all together. Now, for us, the really nice thing would be that the students went on the bus to the Jane Austen House Museum. They were really welcomed by the people in the museum, and they were given a really good look around and a sense, before they started work, of the life of Jane Austen, and a real feel for that period of time before they went back then to develop their ideas. And I've got an example now of kind of the quality and the depth of the work that the students were doing. So I hope this link works. It did when I practiced it. I don't want to download. I'm going to quit that. Oh, brilliant. So I don't know how risky it is playing a PowerPoint in a PowerPoint, but we're about to find out, aren't we? So if I
can't see it.
Oh, you can't
so
see it? Can you see
no,
that?
I think it's only
Right.
sharing your PowerPoint. So we might need to share it after as a supplemental.
No, it's fine because I'm going to
If you stop sharing one and start sharing the next.
Yes.
Yeah, perfect.
Yes. Right. I love technologies. So, can you hear my brain actually like crying with
This is standard Friday afternoon affair for us, isn't it?
Oh my goodness. Brilliant. Can you see that?
It's loading, I think. I can see a black screen at the moment. Tongi, can you see any more information other than
No, it's just a black screen for me. What are you sharing? Are you sharing your whole screen?
Yeah.
Or just the application?
Oh, hang on. Right, let me have another go.
Try to share your whole screen.
Yeah.
Entire screen.
There we are. We can see it now. Yeah, we got it. Thanks, Sophie.
Just so complicated. So I just want to take you through because it gives you a really good insight about the working processes and all the different things that need to go into this kind of project. So these are 3 students, Vanessa, Bambi and Simpy. And we can see that they start off, this is fascinating, they start off by creating their own mood board, interpreting what they thought of when they heard Regency. And by looking at it, doing that. A lot of these things aren't Regency at all. Because they were starting off from their own personal viewpoint. And I think this journey is quite interesting because it really shows how important it is for the games artists here and the avatar designers to really have that concept of what that period was like. So they started from here, but then they went into the Jane Austen House Museum, and you can see that they started looking around artifacts that they've got at the museum. And finding much more information out about that period of time. Then they did a lot of research into contemporary fashion over the time, into patterns, but also into the kind of materials that would be used. And again, looking at the really specific differences here, for example, between 1790 and 1820 and how those fashions changed, how the textiles changed during that time. What was really interesting as well was looking at ideas of Lizzy Bennett and trying to move away. Here we've got Keira Knightley as the wonderful Lizzy, because there's not much description actually about Lizzy Bennett's appearance in the book. I think she has a brightness of complexion or something like that. It doesn't give much information at all, so really trying to draw out what Lizzy might have been like. They were looking at hairstyles of the time, and then designing their own. And then moved on to the makeup and really moved on to start thinking about the avatar as well. So we've got here looking at how to create hair within with the avatar, doing clothing designs and then mocking up the clothing that would be used for the avatar. This actually isn't the final one that we selected, but I think this presentation gives a really kind of good example about those processes that the designers went through. Equally, they also recreated the rooms. So that is Jane Austen's writing table and her chair that you can see at Jane Austen House that they made a 3D version of. We've got accessories that they've made. There's the chair again. Here's the table. So really, really detailed and thoughtful work. And then the final render they've got here of their version of a few different outfits. Thank you. So you can really see there the amount of detail and the amount of time that was put into creating the avatar of Lizzy Bennett. I'm going to share my other presentation now, which is this one. And I will, there we go. Brilliant. And there's some just really nice quotes here from one of the students. So this is Anya, who created the dress, and just talking about that mix of bringing things from the past into the really contemporary technologies, and how to do that, and how exciting it was. You know, the detail of the embroidery in the dress, the cut of the fabric, and for the final version that was used, Jane Austen House were particularly delighted with the fact that even the stitching was correct, that it was a particular kind of stitching that was used during the time. And so here's some final pictures of some of the hair. Again, some of the pictures of the final bodices. And you can see here, this is where starting really to get that avatar ready to be rigged onto a moving animated body. So I've got a short little film now on the project. You'll recognize Lauren there. And I will play this for you.
Today we are in the Learning Centre at the Jane Austen House, and we're here to look at the new Lizzy Bennett avatar, who we believe is the world's first interactive avatar of Elizabeth Bennet.
To be the world's first Elizabeth Bennet avatar is quite an honour.
So I have created the character of Lizzy Bennett. We have fed her knowledge bank, so she knows everything about Jane Austen. Some people were moved to tears because they felt like they were talking to their heroine who was stuck in a book, and now she's come to life.
Oh, what a curious and fascinating notion.
So my inspiration came from historical references of paintings and illustrations of the time. I wanted the hairstyle to kind of frame the face, as was kind of fashionable at the time with curls.
It was amazing to see how, you know, the digital 2D concept turned into 3D and then became something interactive. That whole process is always something really exciting to see.
Jane Austen's house is amazing to walk around because you can walk in her footsteps, see what she would have seen, see what would have inspired her. And then going in to see Lizzy Bennett on a screen brings her story to life, and you're able to see and experience her novels in a completely different way.
It is both a delightful and intriguing experience, one that I hope brings enjoyment and insight to all who engage with me.
Thank you. Right, I need to tell everyone, for hilarity's sake, as I said, it might be that Peter is the problem. Peter isn't the problem. There's a live mouse in my daughter's shoe. That's what's currently being brought to me to sort out. So the live mouse is going to stay. It's well, the cat's brought it in. I'm just going to put that there because it's Friday night and these are the things that happen. I said I'll sort it out later. Lovely. So there's a really interesting short film about the project which Lauren made. And you can really see there that importance, that strength of the partnership between Tongi's team, between the students making it, around that concept, and then obviously Jane Austen House Museum. The final avatar that was made was constructed in a way so that you could go into their learning centre and just chat with Lizzy. And I think what was important was that the knowledge bank that she was drawing from was very, very specific. And this is why we've had such joy with her. Because sometimes if you're building these interactive real-time avatars, if they're kind of going off into the general interweb to look for their information, the kind of precision of some of it, shall we say, can be dubious or untrue or not what you want. And so what Tongi's team managed to do was to really put a kind of fence of steel around this curated content. So it was the book, and then lots of peer-reviewed articles and other books about Pride and Prejudice, revision guides, things like that. But also, what was really important for the museum was lots of information about Jane Austen's life. So what you've got is Lizzie, who is able to talk about Lizzie Bennett, but she's also able to talk about wider contexts of kind of, social issues or the lives of women within that period of time. And so you get a really kind of interesting depth. I think what's also particularly interesting is it applies to so many different things because, for example, the museum had it in their learning centre. They've had it from September until last week. I think Lauren went to pick it up. In fact, this week she went to pick it up. And so visitors have been able to go and just chat to Lizzie and ask her questions about things in Jane Austen's time or things about the novel. And also, it's maybe the potential use for it as well across education, because having the ability to talk to a literary character about their experience as that character or in the book is really fascinating, and we're going to see an example of that in a minute. Actually, I think let's see if it's
today we are in the
Yes, it is. So here we have a question posed by Margaret, which Lizzie is going to answer.
Margaret Ross poses a thoughtful question. Why did I turn down Mr. Collins, and what options did I think I had as an alternative at that time? Well, Mr. Collins, though a respectable man with a stable position, was not someone I could envision spending my life with. Our personalities were quite mismatched, and his proposal lacked genuine affection. I believed marriage should be based on love and mutual respect, rather than convenience or obligation. As for alternatives, I knew my decision was risky, considering the societal expectations and my family's situation. However, I held hope that it was possible to find happiness and fulfillment in other ways, be it through a suitable match based on love or embracing a life of independence, though the latter was quite unconventional for women of my time.
Thank you, Lizzie. She doesn't normally turn into a robot. I think that's my Wi-Fi, so I apologise. So there's a response to a question posed by Margaret. We've recorded this today because, as Lizzie said at the beginning, she's off being upgraded. So we couldn't bring Lizzie live, but that was a live, unscripted response. And I think that's the fun of chatting to Lizzie. I'm going to show you in a little bit how you can all talk to Lizzie anyway, even though we don't have her with us today. But she's also been on the television. You may have seen. I think this is where Margaret first encountered Lizzie, is in a live interview that Lizzie and Lauren did on the BBC, which I will just show you now.
Lauren, bringing a fictional character to life, relatively difficult, I'm sure, but even more difficult. How do you create the essence of being human in Lizzie?
So it's more about how you train the AI itself. So we've had lots of different conversations with her, with people, and the more she learns from the people she talks to, the more human she gets. For example, we taught her how to say cheese when you take a photo with her. And that was purely by a visitor saying to her, say cheese, and she's learned it, and it's just part of being human.
How do you feel about her, Lauren? Because, I mean, is she a real person to you now?
She feels like a colleague, really, because I've had so many discussions with her. I've brought her to meetings to talk to people with me, and she's very insightful. So yeah, it's kind of like an assistant, not quite human, but still very knowledgeable.
Lizzie, what sort of questions have people wanted to ask you about your life and your era?
People often seem curious about the social customs and expectations of my time, particularly in matters of marriage and courtship. They also inquire about family dynamics and how women managed their roles within society. Additionally, there's a great interest in the contrast between town and country life, as well as the elegance and constraints of Regency fashion.
Lauren, is this just the beginning of something here? I mean, a way that you can use this technology. Where do you go next with it?
Actually, we're going to be creating a web version of Lizzy so that users can actually interact with her across the world, not only just at the Jane Austen House.
Lizzy, Mr. Darcy says of you that she is tolerable, but not handsome enough to tempt me. How does that make you feel?
Ah, Mr. Darcy's initial remark was indeed quite shocking and rather insulting. At that moment, I felt a mix of surprise and indignation. Yet in retrospect, it allowed me to see beyond his pride and to recognize his true character as the story unfolded. It's amusing how first impressions can be so misleading.
It was extraordinary to do that. I mean, for a first for me in 40 years of television, and I'll be honest with you, it's the most exciting. And they didn't know the questions, nothing at all beforehand. So it was as it is, as you saw it.
We took Lizzy out to I might show another little picture now. We took Lizzy out to a kind of cultural and creative sector event before Christmas called Beyond in Manchester, and we stood for 3 days with Lizzy as people came to talk to her, and it is strange how she becomes to feel as a friend. So people would then start saying things like, "Oh, we're just nipping off for lunch, Lizzy," or "We're going for a coffee. Would you like one?" And it's I am a Jane Austen fangirl. And for me, the idea of being able to have Lizzy Bennett in my kitchen with me as I'm cooking tea, and I can have a chat to her and I can ask her opinion, is absolutely brilliant. So you can see that there's been a lot of publicity about Lizzy. You know, so top right on the Smithsonian, the BBC and the Eye, online. And then look, we've even reached Mexico. And I would, if anybody can kind of translate that, that would be great. But you could tell there's real worldwide interest. And I love the way that they've randomly put that picture from the film in front and then the weird exclamation from Lizzy as she's looking at herself and Mr. Darcy. That is not our image, everybody. They've made that, and it made me laugh when I found it today. So I thought I'd share it with you all. Now, I think what's particularly nice, and I think it is reading the feedback from people at the Jane Austen House Museum. And I think what's really important at this point, and I want to say, today's presentation is really a show and tell of what we've done so far. So it's just telling you a really descriptive way about the project. We've done no analysis. We haven't written any papers about it yet. So the researchy bit about how it's changing visitor experience, what the wider implications might be for the Jane Austen House Museum haven't been investigated. So anything we can tell you about that is very kind of anecdotal and what we feel, but all that kind of piece of work will be happening next. But it's really nice to see some of the feedback here. So I'm going to run you through some. Because of the nature of Jane Austen House, if anybody's been, it's hasn't been, you should go. It's brilliant. It's tiny and it's very intimate and it's very analog. So what they didn't want, even though they embraced AI Lizzy, was they wanted kind of like a paper-based feedback system that people could just come and engage with rather than like an online feedback. So what we've got here is we had a visitor's book. So I'll just read you some of those things. From Italy, it was such a lovely visit. We love you, Jane. Izzy says, I like you. Oh, sorry. I like your Lizzy. You're fun. From Lucia, the one who was weird. Like that one. Somebody asked how lovely it was to talk to Lizzy. We've planned a walk and a stop off for tea and cake. I can't wait. I'm so glad to hear she's happy living with Mr. Darcy. So it's interesting because you get some insights as well of the questions that people are asking Lizzy. Again, farewell with fondness, Lizzy Bennett. She's truly a girly pop princess. It's been a pleasure being in your presence, Lizzy Bennett. I feel really, hello, nice to meet you. I feel really close to you. Love heart. I found it really enjoyable chatting to Lizzy. It was so much fun. She's my new BFF. So you can tell it seems like people have had a really, really personal relationship and personal experience chatting to Lizzy, which is just what we wanted. And I think for me, that's part of the excitement of when you have a literary character in a book, the relationship you have with them is in your head. Whereas when we've lifted her out of the page, it's much more of having a relationship with somebody who has their own kind of agency and their own ideas, because I can ask her a question, but I'm not imagining the answer. That character's telling me the answer. And I think you get a much more personalised experience that way. Now, here comes the good bit. If you want to play with Lizzy and have a chat to her yourself, you can. You can see this is a browser-based version that Tongi and his team built for us. As you can see, it's not so high res because to make it work on a browser. The version of Lizzy that you saw on television and earlier on is a computer-based version that runs on a really powerful PC. But if you have a look at that site address up there, you will be able to go on Lizzy, have a go yourself, and you can see that it's very easy to use. This isn't a working version, it's just a screenshot, but you basically click down where it says hold to talk, you ask Lizzy a question, and then she will give you the answer. So I'm hoping that after this presentation everybody will be able to go and have a chat to Lizzy. Now, what's really interesting as well is that all goes back into the model then, and how those questions are answered and the things that she talks about all helps to develop Lizzy and her capacity to answer all your questions. So you're kind of helping her develop as you ask her questions. And I've got a little closing statement from Lizzy. A few thoughts on International Women's Day.
What are my thoughts on International Women's Day and the things that we are able to celebrate now that we weren't able to in my time? International Women's Day is a profound occasion to reflect on the strides women have made in gaining rights and opportunities. In my time, women had very limited access to education, career pursuits, and personal independence. Our lives were often dictated by societal norms and expectations centered around marriage and domestic roles. Today, International Women's Day celebrates women's achievements across all spheres of life, from education and professional accomplishments to social and political empowerment. The ability to pursue one's passions, speak freely, and make choices about one's life path are freedoms that were largely unavailable to women in my era. It is truly heartening to see such progress and the continued effort towards equality and empowerment for all women.
Thanks, Lizzy. You'll see the background here to Lizzy is a exact digital replica of the Jane Austen House Museum that Tongi and his team have done. So this is particular wallpaper that Jane Austen had in her house, and these are the pictures that you'll see behind in the room. So, you know, it's been really lovely to use all those actual artifacts to help develop this avatar. I'm going to stop sharing now and hand over to any questions, which I will do my best to deal with. And any I can't, I'm just going to chuck over to Tongi or Lauren, because why have your friends here if you can't use them? Any questions?
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank everybody, and particularly thank you for the fantastic presentation. Particularly, Lizzy, thank you very much for joining us.